Hey everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to survive those art challenges. The one that I have done in the past is called the Index Card a Day Challenge, and it's put out by Daisy Yellow. I've done this challenge over 8 times. Initially, I did it as she prescribed, following the rules that she set out. But as time evolved, I found that the challenge wasn't necessarily meeting my needs. And that's what I want to talk about in this video before we get to the tutorial. If you like the idea of these challenges, but you don't like the restrictions, I implore you, change it to meet your needs. Change it to get the benefits from it that you want. Trust me, no art journaling mixed media police are going to show up at your door and demand that you follow the rules. She puts out 7 prompts each week through the month of June and July. Here's a sample of week 1 and week 2. The idea being that you would do 1 a day for the 60 days. Now, doesn't work for me anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm printing out the prompts and I am going to use prompts that appeal to me, especially the ones that I know are going to help me use up things in my stash, ephemera, focal images, stamps, stencils. I'm making no promises to do all 60. In fact, I know I'm not going to. I might do 1 a week, 3 a week. It just depends on what works and matching it to the supplies that I have. I'm also not doing it on an index card. I've got lots of journals, lots of blank pages. I don't need to have index cards floating around as well. So I am making it fit me, and I ask you to do the same. So I've printed off 4 weeks of the index cards, mainly because I was on holidays when the Index Card a Day challenge happened. So I'm looking at this and I know the word leopard kind of jumps out at me. I know I just got this leopard stencil in amongst a group of stencils that I have. And I know I have some napkins that have leopard pattern on them. And remember, my goal with the Index Card a Day challenge is to do quick, easy, fun art journal pages and mixed media pieces using stuff that I already have in my stash. So along with the leopard print, I thought I'd put a cat napkin. I know I have lots of these, and so I'm just pulling out the variety of cat ones, and I am going to audition them later and make some final decisions about which one is going to fit the page as I go. So first off, let's give our page a coat of white gesso. I'm not doing anything fancy here, just applying the white gesso with a brush. This kind of gives a primer to the page and prepares it to take the paint. So I cut out the focal image from the napkin. This allows me to audition it on the page. I can manipulate it and see exactly how it's going to look, or at least get a better idea with, here I'm just kind of sliding the stencil underneath it. Where would I put this? How would I center it? Does it fit the page? These are questions that I'm asking myself as I look at the page. That first one, it was seemingly too big. Didn't mind the 2 kittens. That was kind of cute. This one fits the page better than that first one. And then I have these ones, and they're kind of peeking off to the side, but I don't like that orientation. How about if I turn it this way? How does that look? Now, I really like this, but for what I'm doing today, I'm just not feeling it. So I'm just going to keep these in my stash. You're definitely going to see these again because I think these are cute. They're really adorable with them kind of peeking over the edge. But I have to think of a better way of utilizing that. So I'm just going to switch this orientation. I could put it going up and down here. I'm just finalizing my last choice. And now I've picked the focal image. Now I need to do the background. And I'm going to do that leopard print, but I'm not going traditional leopard print with the beige and taupe and burnt siennas. I'm going with yellow green, bright aqua, and Prussian blue. And I'm first putting on the lightest color, and I'm just putting this on with a makeup sponge. Because I've primed it with the gesso, it goes on really smooth. It's not soaking into the paper. It also allows me to blend the colors here a little bit easier because the paint stays wet a little bit longer instead of soaking into an ungessoed page. So I'm just building this up, mixing it, and you know what? Yes, it looks like a hot mess. Embrace that. You are going to do some stamping and stenciling and stuff on top of it. This is just added texture and interest. Here I'm adding the Prussian blue, and I'm being careful here. I tend to put too much of the dark, and I don't want to lose that yellow green um, that I have there. I don't want this to be too much Prussian blue. Okay, I think that's going to look good. Maybe a little bit more blue here, but I'm quite happy with the colors of this background. But I'm going to add a little bit more interest and pattern. So this is drywall mesh, and I'm just using black paint here and just doing a little bit of stamping through the mesh, stenciling through the mesh, I guess, just to add a little bit more interest to my background. Quick, easy, and very inexpensive. So I'll link the video to the drywall mesh video where I have uses for drywall mesh in art. It is a very inexpensive art supply that you get from the hardware store. So I'm doing that in black, and then I'm going to add a little bit of stenciling with white paint. And this white paint is Liquitex Basic Fluid Medium that I got at Michael's. I like the white and black. I do not like the colors. It's too thin. I would not buy them again. The white and black I will continue buying because they work really well for how I use it. Here I'm using the stencil brush from the Crafter's Workshop and this Stamperia stencil. Um, it's a very fine stencil, and I find using the stencil brush with it instead of the makeup sponge really gets into those small nooks and crannies and allows you to stencil them. I'm not trying to be able to read this stenciling, even though it's text. This is just pattern in the background. Layers, layers, layers. So again, I'm going to put another bug in your ear about doing making the art challenges, whichever one they are, work for you. You rewrite the rules and make it fit so that you get the maximum benefit. If you don't end up doing it, you're nothing gained. So you might as well take the liberty to alter it. So now that that's completely dry, I have this leopard print stencil. And I got this off Amazon. It was a package of texture print stencils that I love because they're just very common. You can use them on anything. They're not theme specific. They're just good basic patterns. I'm using black acrylic paint and a makeup sponge, and I'm putting the paint on my makeup sponge and patting off. You don't want a wet makeup sponge. That's when it's going to seep under and maybe make a mess of your stenciling. Now, I thought about using the Prussian blue, but I wanted that stark contrast with the black, so that's what I went with. But Prussian blue would have been a good choice as well. I'm just moving the stencil over and continuing the stenciling here. And while it looks like I'm going fast, this part of the video is sped up. I do take my time with stenciling. That's another way of making good stencils. So after a quick dry, I'm just auditioning my cat on there. I love how the yellow green of the eyes and the blue that's in there matches the background. That's kind of why I chose those background colors. This is my Pet Talk sentiment pack. It's available for purchase at NINNYSNAPKINS.com. I'll put a link in the description box. I pulled out a few quotes that will work with the cat here, and I'm just going to audition them. Some of them are too small, but remember I said I wanted to be able to use what's already in my stash, so I do not want to print them out bigger. I plan my day around the possibility of a nap. I don't mind. I like the saying of that one, even though I do like the size of living with catitude. That seems to fit the page better. But again, I don't want to print out or create something new to use on these challenge pages. My challenge is to do that. Now, to glue that on, I'm going to use the iron decoupage technique to glue it onto a piece of paper. Now, this is an iron decoupage sheet that I created, and I will link the video that shows you how you can create your own. It's a great tool to have in there. Now, I want this to be opaque. If I glued the cat down right now, that darkness would come through because the napkin goes almost translucent or transparent. So you would see all those markings. So I need to back it with paper. Now you could just glue this down use fluid matte medium and glue it onto copy paper. But using the iron decoupage sheets like this, make it even easier. And it's nice to have these on hand. So I've just lined up and cut around where basically the cat is going to go. I've peeled off the 2 excess plies. That's really important. I'm going to cover this with parchment paper, and I'm going to use my mini iron to iron it down. What this is basically doing is activating the adhesive that's on the iron decoupage sheet and adhering the napkin to it. And get this, it will adhere it without wrinkles, without fail. It's nice and smooth. So if you're not a fan of the wrinkles when you glue down, this would be your workaround. Now, this also stabilizes the napkin and allows me to easily grab my scissors and cut this out. I'm kind of wobbling. I don't want this because it's fur. I don't want it to be perfect straight edges. So once it's cut out, I'm going to put it back on the page, finalize the assortment, and then I'm going to glue this down. And here I'm using my fluid matte medium, just putting a generous coat underneath. You can use gel medium. In fact, I typically do when there's a couple layers of paper. I'm going to line it up and very gently put a coat of the fluid matte medium on top. You don't want to get too rough here because you could rip the napkin. That's happened to me a couple times, and the other times I've never had problem. Maybe it's the quality of the napkin. I don't know. And then I'm just going to glue down my sentiment that I've cut and rearranged in a certain way. I plan my whole day around the possibility of a nap. First things first. So some would say that the page is pretty much done at this stage, except for the finishing. And the finishing is what's going to take it from okay to wow. So first thing, I'm going to add some colors using my Inktense blocks. I'm going to overpaint using the Inktense blocks. And I chose the color. There's kind of that burnt sienna color on the cat, but I want to make it a little bit bolder. This is my focal image. I want it to stand out, so I'm just giving it a wash of color. Now, if you don't have Inktense blocks, you can use acrylic paint. You're just watering it down. And you have to be careful when you're doing it on top of a napkin that's glued down. Too much water will reactivate the glues and you may rip the napkin. So I like using the Inktense blocks. It's ink, not watercolor, and it's permanent when it's dry. So I'm just adding that burnt sienna orange tabby kind of color to my cat. Stay tuned to the end. I'm going to show you the original cat to see. And then I'm going to add just a little bit more color to the eyes with that green and the teal that's in there. I'm just matching it on my swatches to whatever color is the closest to it. Now, I could totally change the color of the cat if I wanted instead of just enhancing the colors that were there. That's also a trick that you can do with the overpainting technique. But when you're overpainting, make sure you do a coat of the matte medium on top. You need to seal that napkin or you'll get some results that you're not going to be fond of. I really love how the cat's eyes match the background. That wasn't an accident. I planned that. But you could have done a background with pinks and oranges. That would look really nice too. Now here I am using my angle brush and black acrylic paint, and I am shading around the cat. This is making the cat stand out from the background. It just makes it look a little bit more 3D, and it's a great technique to have to use in the finishing process of an art journal page. I will link that video where I specifically teach how to do this technique. It's a bit of something to learn, but you can use it on every single page, so it's well worth the practice and the attempt at using it. I like how this gives a shadow around the cat. And you can put as much or as little as you want. I start with a little bit and then I build it up, making it a little bit more present if I want. Then I'm going to shade around the page. This frames my page, makes everything work together. And then I'm shading as well around my sentiment. Again, I want the sentiment to kind of stand out from the background. And this is a busy background. I'm just adding a little bit more color here. This is with a black acrylic paint. I'm just darkening some of the stripes on my cat. So I said before, you can use the Inktense blocks or you can use acrylic paint. I got a fine line brush, and I'm just making some whiskers going up onto the page, extending the whiskers past the cat. I thinned down the paint for this, and then I'm just some of the wispy hairs here and there, I'm just adding to my cat in hopes of making it look a little bit more lifelike. Now there's the original cat and there's mine. You can see how I've enhanced it and brightened the colors and made it stand out a little bit more. So I hope you give that overpainting technique a try. It's another one well worth your while. Now remember the extra supplies that I took off? If you keep them, you can cover up your focal image if you were choosing to splatter. I thought I might, so I kept them, but I've opted out from doing splatters on this one, but I thought I'd give you that tip. And there is the finished page. It was a quick, easy. I used the prompt from the Index Card a Day Challenge, and I used supplies that I already had in my stash. Let's call that a win. Until next time, go get creative.